First of all, I really enjoyed the show.
Thank you.
Didn't first start watching it. My daughter and I watched shows together, and she said, "We need a new show." And I heard that you were attached to this, which I didn't expect because I love evil. So I said, "Let's watch this." And she said, "Want to watch a mystery?" She said, "Yes." We watched it, and then every night it was like, "Can we watch more Elsbeth? More Elsbeth?"
How old's your daughter?
She's 13 going on 14. And a little young for some of the topics, but she's a very smart kid, and we discuss a lot of the things that come up, which is great, which I like the kind of the moral discussions that can
That's
be brought up.
really nice.
So, in general, where, I know this came from another character, why create the series around her, and the approach that you take when telling these stories, I'm going to combine two questions into one. It kind of has this, the deadly sins, like 7 deadly sins, like, always like looking at people through that lens. You know, not all of them, but some of those lenses.
Why don't we answer the first
Yeah,
question?
sure.
The first question is, we always loved working with Carrie Preston. It was a surprise to us because we never worked with her before. We saw her on a great movie called, I think, Confidence, where she had a smaller part. She was so good. Created this character on Good Wife. And then it was such an explosive character and always played as a female Columbo. So over the pandemic, Michelle and myself combined two ideas, Carrie Preston and Columbo, and thought Columbo was just such a really good tonic for a depressing time. More so than a lot of the binge shows now, which kind of has some heavy weight to it, 8-hour movie weight to it. But it was always so, it kind of was light, even though the subject was murder. So I think that, not to speak,
No,
but I
go,
think
please.
that was the reason we wanted to do it, was Carrie Preston and kind of a return to Columbo, but for the 21st century.
And in terms of what it's interesting that you say that about the lessons or sort of the morality of the show. I feel like Elsbeth is a force of kindness. And the show kind of takes that from the character that, you know, it's a show about a woman who is able to stop people who think they can get away with murder in every way. And so there's something incredibly comforting and joyful about the character. And so, you know, she's coming up against people who have lost touch with their morality or who want something so bad that they're forgetting what's right and wrong. And without being preachy, she kind of just brings us back to a feeling of joy and connection and enthusiasm that the world needs.
It's great. And I watched Doctor Who with my daughter for the kind of same reasons why I stuck with this, because it wasn't such a dark thing that I had to be like, you're seeing the world and it's through a negative light, because it does go through Elsbeth, who is doing it for the right reasons and who's out there, like, you know, fighting for good and not like, you know, working your way up the ranks or trying to be anything more than, you know, kind of carrying the torch for positivity.
We felt kind of the topic sentence of season 1 was in the finale when she says to Kaya, "I know a bunch of people died, but we had a lot of fun."
So true. That kind of goes to the next question about the balance. How do you find that balance? Because it's crime, there's murder, there's death in every episode. There's some really nasty people involved with some of them, and then there's humor. But yet, it doesn't feel like the humor is like an afterthought. It kind of fits in like a natural.
Excuse me. The philosophy we've had in the writers' room is that to make the cases work and make each episode work, and to make them all feel different, is to build the case using details that are very specific to the world we're in. So we try to avoid sort of standard case clues, like, oh, there's a security camera in that corner that they didn't know about. You know, we try to, like, where, you know, we have Elsbeth solve one crime by dancing the hot honey rag from Chicago. But we dig into what is going on. Like in for instance, the episode with the season premiere of season 2, it takes place in the world of opera. Well, a clue ends up being the hump someone wore as Rigoletto in 1970. In other words, and by digging into those kind of specifics, it makes it sort of just more fun and comic inherently. And I think that helps us from getting too heavy.
And how did you choose New York? Like, why in New York Comic Con? This is a good time to answer that question.
Well, for a few reasons. We wanted to see Elsbeth as a fish out of water. So we wanted to get her out of the Midwest and love New York, frankly, as much as we do. Also, it's an opportunity production-wise because we filmed Good Fight and Good Wife in New York for Chicago, which means you are always hiding the iconic buildings. But now there's an opportunity to actually play that up and really enjoy the beauty of New York.
So for us, it was trying to avoid the gritty cop show New York and do the postcard New York a tourist might see. I mean, a tourist who loves it, which allows the visuals to embrace what's most beautiful. It's all blue sky New York as opposed to trash strewn mice. The New York we love and know. This is the New York that is the advertising bureau would love to show.
And if we shoot on a day where it's not a blue sky, we put it in later.
It's like the postcard rack,
Yes.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
And I when I was watching it, my mother-in-law watched an episode with us, and she's like, and she's from Vegas but moved here, but she's very disconnected from New York. But she's like, oh yeah, that's this, and she was like, I'm like, oh good, it's kind of like an entryway for her, who's kind of like, I don't go to the city, but she's pointing out all the sites. So in general, like, so you have this character, you have the mysteries, but then you have it's not just them, it's not just the character, it's world is you're building with Wendell's character and everyone around it. Well, how much can we expect you to see it expand this season, or will it still remain kind of the environment?
We're expanding a little bit. We're bringing in some other characters that we've heard of but haven't seen yet. We're also always open to when we have a character that we love who is not in prison after the episode, we find new ways to have them come back. Because I always say that when you live in New York, you keep running into the people you know, even though there are millions and millions of people here. And now we're starting to, the original concept that we had with the detectives, because we have a detective on every case just about, unless Captain Wagner is doing it, was that we thought of it like the judges on The Good Wife and The Good Fight. That Robert and Michelle had built this stable of terrific characters, and you would rotate and you would decide which judge makes the most sense, is the most fun for this case. So we have started to build this stable of detectives, but they've been so wonderful that this year we actually start to see them at the same time together, and it blows your mind, and it's so comforting because we're realizing that we're developing this world that feels like home to us.
Right. And was there a reason why you decided to reverse Whodunnit instead? That's the first thing that threw me off. I was like, I think I know who the killer is and why. Unless there's are they going to have a twist? Oh wait, no, there's no twist. Now
that was the Columbo form that we fell in love with, and
it always seemed like a witty form that because you're so used to the Whodunnit, which is more of it's a puzzle. It's interesting to not do the obvious puzzle. But
I also think that there's something to this kind of show where you have these great guest stars playing the murderer. It is there's nothing more fun for an actor than to play someone who is lying when the audience knows they're lying, which is different than when you're trying to figure out if they're lying. You don't get the same amount of fun when you know they're lying and you're watching how well they lie or how poorly they lie. That's really delicious for an actor. That said, we are doing a lot of experimentation of sort of either breaking the form or finding variations on the form. So we don't want anyone to think like, oh, you've seen one Elsbeth, you've seen them all. We're finding new ways to make the mysteries pop in different ways.
Elsbeth is her style. My daughter said, how did they pick the outfit? I know kind of why. She stands out. She's I see it as she's like this, almost like a virus that gets into New York and starts spreading, and you can't resist her. You can't not notice her. So can you get into that a little bit?
Well, Dan Lawson, the wardrobe designer, is a genius. He's been doing the wardrobe on Good Wife, Good Fight. He, established her look there, and it just keeps going with her. Elsbeth is someone who is really comfortable with herself, and she's true to herself, and she is bright. She loves bright things, and she doesn't much care that everybody else in New York wants to be dressed in black.
It's the idea of playing off she's the unhip person. Everybody's hip wears the same shades of brown and black. She'll come in with bright pink or green that will clash. She's that. And then Dan Lawson, obviously through his genius, as our costume designer, just makes it its own style.
He's also so wonderful at looking at costumes and how are we telling the story of that episode and coming up with opportunities. Like, for instance, in season 2, at one point we see Kaya at home in a sweatshirt, and it's a faded, lavish ladies sweatshirt from the TV show that she liked to watch in season 1. You know, and on the back it says "I've got your back," which is perfection. You know, everyone who works on the show. What's nice is that everyone loves the show, and everyone is trying to contribute in as much fun as they can, and so you'll find that all over the place. They're like, I mean, right now we're doing an episode where I can't talk about where it takes place or anything, but the production team just went to town, and everywhere you look, you'd pick up something, and it's like, oh my God, this is from the show. Like they're the detail work, and I think that also helps for our guest stars who are coming in for 9 days. They step into a world, and it immediately feels real to them because the production team is so terrific.
Yeah.
I'll just close with this. You mentioned, like she follows her own, to the beat of her own drummer, and as a father of 2 daughters, it's always been my ways to kind of let them explore and let them choose and let them all that stuff. It's great to have characters out there that don't bend and don't say, I need to follow whatever trends, because especially now it's trending. That's what they do. That's what all our friends are calling.
Well,
censor that out. But so many people have lost their identity. I go, be who you are, because one day you'll be happy with it, and people around you will be happy because you will be the one who rides.
But who believes that at 13?
Yeah.
They're good listeners. They really are.
That's awesome.
They're
on the season finale last year, Elsbeth walked in a fashion show with her fashion, and we had to decide what music we would play. And we thought of Make Your Own Kind of Music, which is Cass Elliot, and because it felt like just the perfect expression of who Elsbeth is. But then we realized, that song is considered a terrible cliche now. It's used so often, and there was a whole Saturday Night Live bit about it, how it's used in like zombie movies and all that.
Fight and kill people.
And then we thought, well, Elsbeth wouldn't care that it's a cliche. It's the song, and we used it, and it felt exactly right.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
much.
We'll talk on Twitter.
Yeah.